has a shot, but it goes the other way.
Lebas.
Hello, good evening, and welcome to another episode of the Wednesday Week.
A little bit older than you.
And I'm not touching this topic. I'm not touching it.
Yeah.
Mediocre, mid-table, rabble, aren't
So I just want to be able to talk as much
If you
crap.
play a night game, he has to turn the bloodlines on.
No one would have believed that he would keep his job for as long as he had. But
Hello, good evening, and welcome to another episode of the Wednesday Week. Before I go on, would you please do us all a favour? We hit a bit of a milestone this week on the podcast. We got 2,000 subscribers on YouTube. So if you're watching on YouTube and you haven't hit the subscribe button, please do so. It'll mean a world to us. We do a bit, don't we? So yeah, they're all over here. Brilliant. So welcome, joining us tonight is for a very special show. It's the TWW Awards show. You could keep your Ballon d'Or. You could keep your TV Quick Awards. You could keep any award show. This is the place to be. This is the place to be. So we've got our heads together in the group chat. We voted for us. There's some heated debate, some players. But tonight, we're going to share them with you. And tonight, I've got Stevie, Hollie, and Charlie, who are going to get through all these awards and give them out to all the very lucky winners. So, chaps, how are we? Chaps and chapesses, so to say. Hollie, are we good?
Yeah, not bad. I don't really know what to do with my weekends now. This is crap, innit?
Well, there is still a little bit of football, isn't there? But not concerning Sheffield Wednesday. Charlie, how are you?
yeah, not too bad. I just got back from France the other day, where I watched the final game of the season, sat round a lake, so I wouldn't disturb anyone else. Because I thought either the full-time score is either going to make me run round the lake or run in the lake. So I thought either way, it's not the French's problem, so I'll leave them alone. And it was thankfully run round the lake, did a little lap. So yeah, bonjour.
Bonjour. That's my French. All that's done. Stevie, how are we?
Yeah, good mate. Hungry. I'm hungry. This new fitness kick. I'm trying to get fit for pre-season, and I've stopped eating basically.
I know we've got like 14 players out, Stevie, but I don't think Danny Rule, if it is Danny Rule, is going to give you a call. So, awards.
Hey, before we go any further, I'd just like to say it's phenomenal to see that you dressed up and put your best shirt on.
Do you like it? Well, I got some hammer the other week when I wore it, but I thought, it's the awards and my tux don't fit and all that sort of thing, baby weight.
I'm a little bit disappointed you haven't got a dicky bow on, but other than that,
yeah, I don't
look in the part.
Just things, but yeah. So tonight, all about the awards. We've got a fair few. Well, not a fair few. We've got a few awards to give out, but I think one of the most important ones will be our listeners, followers, and subscribe. Anyone who wants to vote for theirs. So if you head over to X and Twitter, there's a poll on there to vote for your player of the season. So the TWW followers, subscribers, or whatever you want to call yourselves, disciples. That'd be a good name, wouldn't it? Get over there, vote for your player of the season, and we'll announce that at the end of the show. So, should we get on into it? Everyone's eager, aren't they? Anticipation. So, the first award is for favourite away game. This is it, the favourite away game. Yeah? So, all your games we went to, I know there weren't that many away games with wins, but for whatever reason, it's the TWW favourite away game. So, the nominations are...
And the nominees are...
No expense spared, everybody. I mean, look at this, eh? So, we've got QPR, Sunderland, Blackburn, and Rotherham. So if anyone in the comments wants to get theirs down before we go on, so Sunderland. So Hollie, I'll let you just give us a 30 seconds of your favourite away game.
Note to do with most of them being at end of season, Aro, but QPR. QPR was my favourite one. The whole day were absolutely brilliant, but I mean, met you wonderful souls at 10 a.m. for some shots, which continued throughout the day. It's also really, really brilliant to see another team fuck up a bit, so which really helped. And there was just like when the second goal went in, it was such a relief to everybody. And for the rest of the evening, I just kept humming that tequila song and buying more tequila. So I would still be there now if Transport for London didn't stop doing transport to get back to my hotel. I would still be sat there drinking tequila. It was the best day.
And the result was pretty good
Yeah.
as well. Right, so shall we get on with it? Shall we give our first award out? I mean, no one's here to collect it. I haven't got anyone coming in or anything or over a video link, but here we go. So the TWW favourite away game is... It's QPR, a 2-0 away win for the Owls. Probably, I think in the comments, a bit of a controversial thing there. Look at this. I told you, no expenses spared on this show. We've got it down. I'm telling you, eh?
I had no idea that was coming. I had no idea that is literally the best thing I've ever seen on the Wednesday week. The best thing ever.
Well, we've got to have a bit of glam and glitz. I got it wrong way around at the end of the show. So I think a lot of comments are saying Blackburn, but
yeah, Blackburn and Sunderland were really good, but
yeah,
can't beat a London away game, can you?
Yeah, of course. So moving swiftly on. Cheers, David. David saying, loving these graphics. All expenses paid, I'm telling you. Eh? Oh, there we are. No expenses spared. Damn right. Right, next one. Well, we will continue with the game theme. So the next one is home game. Favourite home game.
And the moment is on!
Gets better and better, doesn't it? Gets better and better. Hull, West Brom, Rotherham, and Blackburn. Charlie, favourite home game?
Oh, it's such a tricky one because I think
you don't even have to have any of them. You can put your thing to yourself.
For me personally, as in the happiest I felt at a home game was Norwich. Obviously, yeah, the little. I think it was just because the manner in which we came from 2-0 down and scored from corners, and it was just the celebrations felt like we'd won. But I think if I'm honest, like it was, well, not if I'm honest, I had eyeballs. It was the worst we'd played. So that first half was absolutely diabolical. And it's probably the worst I've felt at a home game, shortly followed by one of the best I've felt at home game. So it almost shouldn't even really count. The fact that we dug ourselves out of that is like, is there a trophy for that? There shouldn't be. But I think, I don't know, the Rotherham one was great. And it's always good playing against like a local rival or whatever. But I think ultimately West Brom was just the most clinically well we'd played. Like, I think it was probably like some of, if not the best football we've played at home. And it was such a big game as well. Like, it was a big deal. It was one that we thought, not only is this like a must win, it's a big ask. It was like, oh, we can't really say we'll settle for a draw. But I think we just absolutely dominated. And it was so great to see. It was so comfortable. It was just really lovely football, and it really like lifted us onto that final few games of the season. So yeah, that would be my two penneth.
There's some comments in the chat, people coming up. So we've got West Brom, we've got Rotherham, because it was the first win, wasn't it? Under Dan, well, first win of the season. They won
it was
2-0.
Wasn't it?
Smith got
both. Smith with the brace, isn't it? Yeah.
Peter, he is agreeing with you, Norwich as well. So I think Hull City's got a shout as well, which was one of my favourites. Just the whole thing of it and where we were and where they were. Cardiff Cup game. Oof. Yeah.
God, that
Right.
feels about 10 years ago.
Drum roll, please. I should have put a drum roll in, shouldn't I? And the
winner is...
It had to be, didn't it? It had to be. West Brom, 3-0 win late on in the season for that 3-game unbeaten end of the season. 3 winning games, should I say. So, there we are. Agree with that, everyone? Stevie, agree with that?
Yeah. I thought the whole performance for when it was in the season was good, but no arguments. West Brom for me. I thought I've just been distracted by Ben saying that we're being treated tonight. Sorry.
Because it's me hosting, not Dan. I think that's what it means.
We came out of draws against Stoke, and who was the other draw that we had that was really disappointing?
Swansea.
Thank you. Stoke and Swansea. And at that point, it was almost right. Everything now, it's shit or bust, and we've got to get to a point towards the end of the season where we need to be picking up points. And let's be right, even though we'd won at Blackburn, nobody really fancied us to do West Brom 3-0 at home, did we? And we were absolutely clinical that day. And the fact that they've gone into the playoffs last weekend, and all right, it's been a pretty dour affair over the 2 first legs, 0-0. They're up there and they're talking about getting into the Premier League, and we've absolutely done them. And that's a measure of, when people are talking about, from the outside, talking about what sort of team we are. Under Danny Rule, we are comfortably top end, mid-table, if not pushing for the playoffs. And I think that's something in the grand scheme of things we don't need to lose sight of. And the fact that we're doing it with the same squad effectively, bar 1 or 2 players that Chisco brought in, is testament to the work that Danny Rule has done this year.
On that note, though, now I've thought about it even longer. For away performance, that point that we got away at Leeds, and that was it? I don't think that was Danny Rule. I think it was.
That was Chisco. Yeah.
But, against Leeds, obviously they've turned out pretty good as it happens. That point, one of the first points of the season, a clean sheet as well.
Yeah.
I mean, I hid behind all the people near me because it was awful, but at that point was pretty good.
Yeah,
pretty good.
It was the longest afternoon of our lives, weren't it? That Leeds game. We met up, didn't we? And I ended up dragging Blair, and my God, it was an hour and a half that felt like 3.5 hours. It was awful. We never looked like scoring. I think it was the first decent game that Bambo had, wasn't it? He looked hard steady.
And Vasquez.
Vasquez pulled off a couple of worldies, didn't he? Yeah. But beyond that, we had nothing going forward. We were absolutely abject. We dug in, and I think it was just one of those days where, as daft as it sounds, if we were still playing now, they wouldn't have scored. We just let a charm life that afternoon.
Yeah.
Cool. Well, there's. Hey, we're getting through these now already. Vasquez clean sheet. Vasquez will prime Yashin. Yeah, it probably the standout.
And I really didn't want too bad.
Pardon?
Ashley Fletcher played in that Leeds game, and he wasn't too bad.
Right. Okay. That must have been one of his only ones, unfortunately for him. Right. We're gonna move on because I think this is probably if the next category. If you was a betting person, woman, man, anyone, and you had £1 to put on, I'm going to bet I could probably name every person who's going to do this. So the next one is, it's the favourite new chant / song of the season.
And the nominees are...
Stonker Steve. Sorry,
Sing
Steve.
He's
not singing, but it's the tequila song, Gasama. We have Danny Roll. We have EK Ugboy, EK Ugbo Boing Boing, or as Blair says, Boeing Boeing, and I will never ever not tweet that if he plays for us again. We have Ole Ole, Deshaun Bernard, Ole Ole. So they are your 4 nominations. Get in the comments your preferred song. I'm going to start. We're all gonna say this one, right? Charlie, your favourite.
I think it's probably a bit of an obvious one, but I think the Danny Roll one for me, but specifically because the first time they played it over the speakers at the end of the match, where it was like, oh, like there was just something like, I don't know, really like magical about that. Like it suddenly became like, oh, this is like a thing. Do you know what I mean? Like it's just kind of, I don't know what it was about that. Yeah. That is exactly what I mean. It was like a nod to the fact that everyone had been singing it, but then it just like legitimized it. It made it like, it's not a Danny Roll chant, it's a Sheffield Wednesday chant now. And I was like, that's sick. So I think for me, like, it's just become like a proper anthem.
Plus, it's a total tune.
It's a tune, as the kids would say. It's a tune.
Hollie, go on. Do you agree?
The Deshaun Bernard song makes me feel really old. It makes me feel like the first time I saw it, I was just stood there going, what is going on? What the hell are people doing? I don't understand it. And then I felt like I can't ask somebody because that means I actually am old. Excuse me, what are you doing? So I couldn't ask, but it makes me feel old. So I'm not voting for that at all. And when we went to QPR, the tequila song, once that's an earworm, once that's in there, that's it. That's there forever. I have been singing that this week. But I have to vote for the Danny Rule one because of its tune status, because it's a total tune. And the start of it at Hillsborough, when it goes, I'm just like, woo! This is it. I'm anybody's for any chant, basically.
My son's watching and he's just put best video on the internet. Yeah, cheers, son. Yeah, thanks.
Right.
Stephen likes the Deshaun Bernard one because he's a young person.
He does like that one, but go on, Stevie. What's yours thing on the song or chant?
That video is the best bit of camera work that's been done all year. And mate,
there's not a word for that, you know, Stevie. There's not a word for camera work.
I'm genuinely going to miss that idiot behind me going, come and sit up here. I can't say what you'd actually say, but yeah, the profanities that come out of your mouth on South Stand.
I know on South Stand, I get some funny.
You don't want him back on Cop. You can't come back once you've gone.
I am the only person on the South Stand that's going to miss him. Oh, maybe Molly. Me and Molly are the only people on the South Stand that are going to miss him.
Go on, quick one on the song, Stevie.
Yeah, it's got to be the Rule song, hasn't it? And what I like about it is, for all the reasons that have been said, it's catchy, it's easy. There's nothing to it. It's effectively 3 words or 2 words, some 3 times. And the funny thing about it was, they did it a couple of times, and then they went sort of continental, didn't they? At the ground after the match, after the games. So post match, they did it the first time, and then they literally went to find every single variation of Danny Rule or Daddy Cool that they could, and it almost became a bit of a competition between Dan Fudge on the TikToks to try and find as many different variations and the Wednesday Stadium announcers. So I think over the course of November through to sort of February, I honestly think I must have heard about 75 different versions of Daddy Cool.
I just like the idea that Boney Emma are just getting random royalties.
Well, I had a look and I was going to tweet out, but I felt I should have done, but just to see if we could get Boney M in the top 100 or something on any chart. But there's that many charts now. There's Apple, there's whatever, and I would have loved that just to like go on and see Daddy Cool in the top 100 or something, and full well knowing that it's going to be Wednesday Ice that's done that. But are we ready? Are we going to go? And the winner of Best New Song Chant is. Had to be, didn't it?
Little face on that picture. I just love him.
Had to be, didn't it? I think unanimous all agree on that, don't we? I think the whole thing, there's no contentious voting there. So what's next? Come on, let's have a look what we've got. Right, we've got most improved player. So this is for a player that's probably started off a bit poor or just not playing, or then he's come in and done the business. It's quite a... There could be lots of players there, obviously, at the start of the season that we had. But the...
And the nominees are...
We've got Paul Valentin. We've got Jedi Gassama, Anthony Masaba, and Deshaun Bernard.
Oh.
Oh,
he didn't get
Charlie.
Yes.
Right. Go on. Who did get your vote, should I say?
So Valentin did get my vote, and I think mostly because he very much did start off kind of ropey and grew to a player that we absolutely couldn't do without. I think there've been other players, and the other nominees you've talked about definitely had I would say Gassama and Masaba almost had peaks and troughs to a certain extent. I wouldn't have said they started poor. If anything, they started quite bright sparks, and then they both had dips, and it was all a bit up and down. And Bernard started average and grew better and better. Whereas I think for me, Valentin started... I don't want to say he was terrible, but he just struggled, like they all did, but in a way where it was he felt like a naff signing. And his journey is he's absolutely fantastic. And I think, and you can tell how much it mattered as well. You could tell that he cared to get better. He cared to grow into that role, and his reactions to stuff. And he was just absolutely essential. We would not have been able to do the second half of the season without him. So hands down, big up Paul for me.
Stevie, who would get your vote, or who did get your vote?
Yeah, Valentin for me.
For anyone who's on audio, we flashed up the picture of the player that got Stevie's vote for everything. There we go. Liam.
I genuinely think he's in the conversation for player of the season, but that's a discussion for another point.
Well, we'll find out who's on the nominees list, won't we?
Yeah, he's not. Trust me. Anything that involves you, I know that he's not. Anyway, I'd say Paul. I don't necessarily think it was a slow start in terms of his performance, in terms of the quality that he had. I just don't think he was match fit, and I thought he struggled to find his feet. And I don't think the pre-season that we had did anybody any favours. And the big one at the start of the season seemed to be Delgado above him, didn't it? And we were looking for somebody who was going to go and score us 15, 20 goals, and we were looking for somebody. Sorry, Slappy Gilmore has just put on Valentin takes pole position here. I'll get my coat. So he did, and as Charlie said, he's coming and he's basically made that right wing back position his own. And I've no arguments with that. I got a lot of stick at the start of the season for him being a right back, and obviously Liam Palmer can't play now that we've got another right back and blah blah blah. But I've no argument. I think Paul Valentin has been the player that has shown the greatest gains. I'd argue that there are a couple of honourable mentions. The first one being Will Volks. I think from where he was at the start of the season to become the talismanic player he was at the end of the season, in many ways, I think he's replaced, in a perverse way, he's replaced that sort of status that George Byers had last year for me. And the other thing I'd say is, I'm going to say it and I'm going to get me hard hat on and I'll get me coat. I think in terms of improvement from start of season to the end, I think Bambo Diaby needs a shout as well. For him going from a solid 5 out of 10 every week to, or 4 or 5 out of 10 to getting to the point where he was putting in some real performances. And, when called upon as the season went on, the mistakes became fewer and fewer and he grew into it. So, yeah, I think he deserves a little nod as well.
Hollie, who got your vote?
I think for a lot of them, Volks Gassama even to an extent, and Paul. I think at the start of the season, a lot of them were like, you could take them or leave them. Like, if they were injured and never came back again, like, would we have been that bothered? But then, like Charlie was saying, that a lot of them have like grown into it. I think Gassama, my main qualm with him at the start of it is that he thinks that he can just run at everybody, and he is the only player that matters. And I think by the end of the season, he started passing, he started using other players. So that is definitely a vast improvement from what he was doing at the start. So you could argue there's that. Like Stevie just said, Volks, again, I absolutely adore him. And we all adore him similarly to a lot of the players from last season. But at the start of the season, much less effective. And then became in those last, I think it'd be hard to argue against pretty much any of them in those last 3, 4, 5 games. To be fair, they all played absolutely outstanding. So a lot of them, compared to them first 12 games, they were all the most improved because it were absolutely dog crap.
Yeah.
And then suddenly, so
the whole team improved, didn't they?
Yeah.
I would vote for Valentin. I remember we played Middlesbrough at home, and they were in the same sort of position. They'd won one game, I think, something, and he was outstanding the first 45 minutes. He had their left back all over, and then on 55, he was gassed. He was absolutely done, awful, like match fitness, anything like that. So for me, yeah, he's got my vote, but quite impressed to see a lot of people vote for Bambo. I didn't think there'd be a lot of love for Bambo, but obviously he's changed some mind there. So
I think also on Paul, I think it's worth pointing out that he himself said that when he first came, he didn't know anybody, he couldn't even speak English and stuff, and he's put so much work into that. He's doing all the interviews and stuff now, and like he didn't speak English a few months ago. That's insane. Like I could never do that, but so he's obviously like invested a lot into improving himself as well. So,
yeah, because there's a lot of English footballers that can't speak English, isn't there? So let's go. Are you ready for this? Let me make sure I've got the right one.
How much Mother's Day?
Oh, I like that tune. And there we have it. Paul Valentin is our most improved player of the season.
He's totally adorable.
Yeah, I have to agree. Yeah, he's been one of the most, especially the last few games as well. He's really good. Right, so next on, we're going to go with. Oh, hang on, I've lost it here. We've got signing of the season. So this is the player that we thought had been the best signing, I suppose. It's not hard. It says what it says on the team, doesn't it? It's you know.
God, you explained that out.
I know. I'm
What does it mean?
And the nominees are...
I don't even know which category we're doing now. No, you've done, mate. Now. So we've got Paveda, Beadle, Bernard, Ugbo, and Masaba. Yeah. So sign of the season. So Holly, I'll start with you. Who got your vote?
So I mean they've all been great, aren't they? Now that we know we've stayed up.
Yeah, this award could have really gone. This could have been the Holly You're All Shit award. Absolutely.
I'm going to say Ugbo, because at that point when he came in and that period he had when he first came in was just without that would be long gone, to be fair. That and just the spark that he had. I know he tailed off a little bit towards the end, but that at that point that is so much what we needed. And even the fans were a bit down about the signings and stuff. But at that point, that is absolutely what we needed. Somebody to go and find the goals and just give us something to cheer about. And he celebrated most of them in front of me and Charlie. So he's my forever fave.
Esty.
Stevie, who's got your vote for signing of the season? That's what that is the player that we've signed, that's played for Sheffield Wednesday in the 23-24 season. Just clarifying things.
On reflection, this is actually a lot harder than I thought it would be, because I nailed my colours to the mast pretty early and went Bernard with an honourable mention for Poveda. But I also agree with Hollie, and I see the merits of bringing Beadle in, and I think Beadle has had something like the most clean sheets or something over a period of time. I'd seen a stat, I can't remember exactly what it was. So for me, I'm gonna, because he was consistent throughout the season and has maintained that level, I think I'd probably come down on the side of Bernard, but not far behind him. I'd say Ugbo, but with a little asterisk next to Poveda, because if Poveda had played another 8-10 games, he'd have comfortably been our best player. And that's not to do a disservice to Beadle, because I think Beadle's been class, but in that order, it's been Bernard full season, been outstanding, an absolute Rolls Royce of a centre half. And we've in the past we've lauded people like Michael Hector, and we've lauded people that have come in and played centre half on loan. For me, I'm doing really well not to get distracted by these comments, by the way. For me, Bernard is a next level up, and it wouldn't surprise me at all if he's playing for a top half championship side next year, if not in the Premier League, or playing at a decent standard abroad. Just underneath it, I think there's a chance with Ugbo. I think we can get Ugbo next year if everything is where it needs to be behind the scenes. I'd like Poveda as well, obviously, but for me in that order, Bernard, Ugbo, Poveda, and Beadle.
If I really thought about it, I would change my mind on to each of them. The more I talk about it, and then when you were saying that, Stevie, I think, who would you want to sign next season? And then that changes who you think is the best signing again, doesn't it? Because I really would like Beadle. I really would like Bernard. I think neither of them are going to come to our standard, to be fair. On
that, Hollie, in all seriousness, I know it's quite light-hearted. Sorry to interrupt, but for me, if those four were there and it's like, right, pick one, it's Poveda all day long. 100%. 100%. We do respect to Beadle. Tin hat on. We do respect to Beadle. We will find another goalkeeper. We've it won't be Dawson, by the way. We'll find another goalkeeper, and as good as Bernard is, we've got Iorfa, and I'll say it again. I think Palmer has shown that he can do it at a level under this manager at centre half. We've got Iorfa, we've got Hekwe. There are players there that can do jobs for us at centre half. Are they as good as Bernard? No. But Poveda's got something that, is absolutely incredible.
I was going to say this, but Matt's put it up. Poveda hasn't and won't play enough games. So I was going to say, he didn't play that many games for Leeds. He didn't get in because he was about 4th, 5th, 6th down the line. But he's been here and played a few games and got injured. They came back too soon and got injured again. Is there any worry about that anyway?
No. He's not played consistently enough to be injury prone, has he? He's had an injury. It's a muscle injury. It's a hamstring, I think, isn't it?
Yes.
Let's be right. If it's a hamstring and we've tried getting him back too soon, which we did for QPR, then more fool us. If he wasn't right and we've rushed him back, which I believe is probably what happened, that doesn't make him injury prone. If he'd not got the hamstring injury, he'd have played for the rest of the season.
Interesting. So, shall we see who's got the votes?
Charlie, what about Charlie's thoughts?
Oh, sorry, Charlie. I lost it. Stevie talks that long. I just lose where I am.
I've not really much to add. Really, I think if Poveda had not got injured, I think he not only would have been my signing of the season, he could have easily been my player of the season. I think that quality that he added, and that he just loved it, didn't he? He just absolutely loved it. Like when he played that first game for us on his birthday, I think that was his first game, or certainly his first home game, and it was just and you're just like, yes, this is a player that wants to be here and wants to play. But I think right up until the last 3 games of the season, I would have been saying Ugbo for everything that Hollie had said. What he did for us at that time, like he was the top, whether he still is, but like certainly was like the top scorer in January signing or whatever it was. And he was doing what no one else was doing for us up to that point, which was finally banging in some goals and getting some points through. But I think just towards the end of the season, when when our defense can get a bit terrified, I think Beadle has potentially kept us in it. The West Brom one comes to mind because while we absolutely did batter him, and and we were doing a lot of good stuff, there were some hairy moments, and he pulled off some absolutely amazing. Like everyone had been fairly content with him, either liked him or wasn't that arse with him, but his status, I think, in like Wednesday night in those last few games, it was like, holy crap, like he's really kept clean sheets, he's really kept us comfortable there. And so I genuinely think he just inches past Ugbo for me, and I think I'd have to say Beadle. I think he's a cracking keeper.
There was a guy at Sunderland away that was adamant he was starting a Beadle song, and he sang it on his own about 20 times, and then by the end everyone relented and joined in, and it actually got away once it started.
And what was the song then, Hollie?
It was One More Year.
Was it not Watch Out, Beadle's About?
It was not that, no. But yeah, he tried desperately to convince him. I don't know if it were like his family member or something, but
come in, join me. Yeah, join him. Right. Let's see. Let me get this right. What are we on? Signing.
The players that you've signed in a season.
Is it? Are you ready?
Criteria.
Yes, it is. As Simon off the podcast goes, it's Dijon. It's Dijon Bernard. Dijon. He's keen. He's mustard.
Nice.
There we go. I like that, eh? Yeah. You know it. I can't argue with that. I mean, there's multiple people, but I don't think whoever got it. Great, Dan. Yes, thank you, Dan. Dan gets the spelling wrong on the ticker. Yeah, well done, Dan. Yeah. There we go. Breaking Simon gets player's name wrong on the ticker on the bottom. Right, where are we now? I think we're getting towards the. Excuse me. Oh, we're getting towards the major ones now. So we've got young player of the season. So. Here we go.
And the nominees are
Gassama, Musaba, Kadamatre, and Beadle. Stevie, what's your thoughts on that? I know we've just heard your lament about a couple of them players on that list, so it's a tough one, isn't it?
Yeah, it's really hard. In the chat, I said Musaba, but having listened to all the conversations that we've had just now, and
so easily swayed.
He is, isn't it?
No, I'm not. Liam Palmer is player of the year.
You nearly got swayed off of Bernard, and we've got the graphics saying that it won.
Hey,
right,
look, we voted for these. What was it? A couple of days ago in the chat. So you can change your mind, Stevie. It's your prerogative, but the vote is the vote. So
I'm changing my mind, and the reason I'm changing my mind is because as integral and as important as the contributions that Musaba has made this year, Stoke goal, QPR winner, etc. And I think is he top goal scorer and assists combined for us this year. So he deserves to be in the conversation, and there's some serious numbers. But the number of times that I've looked at him, and all right, rightly or wrongly, a lot of that has been under Chisco, and a lot of that has been when it's not been firing under Danny for whatever reason. he's been a player that has absolutely pissed me off with some of the things that he has and hasn't done, running down blind alleys and, you know, being quite not negative. He's given the ball away too many times, whereas having listened to the arguments around Beadle, I think there is a solid conversation to have around Beadle being really, really tight over the last sort of 8-10 games of the season, and his record speaks for itself as well. So I've kind of done a little bit of a more of a 90 than a 180, but I'm going to stick Beadle in there over Masaba.
There's a lot of love for Cadamartre, Beadle, Masaba. You can suggest anyone else. I know these are our nominations, but if you feel that there's somebody else that can get it in the comments. And also, Charlie, who got your vote for this?
I think it's Cads for me. I think almost similar to kind of what we were saying, sort of in terms of what we needed at the right time. Like some of the goals he scored for us early on were just like, oh my God, someone's scoring goals, and he's young and he's a Wednesday night, and isn't that fabulous? But I also I really like watching him play because he's still young enough to just have that like hungry, like, come here, give me the ball kind of thing. And I obviously, you know, players need to train and they develop and they mature, and obviously that's great, but there's just something about that, like that raw kind of passion that a younger player has where they just want to get stuck in and play. And I think because he's fairly he's quite big, he's quite broad. I think there's quite a few times when you were like, oh my God, like he was, you know, it was like a bullet. And so many of his goals have been like hefty goals. You know, even they've really smashed it really hard. And there's just something about that directness because he's not just done like a little club flick. He's just been like, get me that goal. And there's just something about that that's great. And I love the story of it as well. I think it's brilliant for him to be like one of our own. I love all that. And he also represents one of the first good bit of businesses we've ever done when it comes to one of our young players. He hasn't signed for Celtic, for example, which is normally what friggin' happens. We actually went, this lad's got some talent, and we signed him to a really decent deal, which still gives us options to loan him out, which may be good for him if that's what we end up doing. But we've not just let some talent slip through our fingers for once. So I think for the whole story, the whole package, I think it's Cads for me. But that's absolutely no disrespect to any of the other players in the nominees, of course. Like any of them, you know, they've all been brilliant. But yeah, it's Cads for me.
I want to change my mind now.
Bloody hell, Stevie. Hollie, which young player got your vote?
I was just about to say, like what Charlie said, with Cadamartre, the fact that we've kept him instead of just letting someone else bring the best out of him. And we may not bring the best out of him, don't get me wrong, but we've not let anyone else do it yet. So that's what I like. However, that's not who I'm going to vote for, because I still think Masaba and the stuff that he's brought, the points that he's brought us, it has just been really so important. And yeah, he is frustrating. And I have really gone to town on him this season because he's really frustrating. But all the players that I love are the frustrating ones. That's my bag, okay? All the players that I've always liked, like Chris Brunt or Gerald Sebon, have been the annoying ones that are sometimes shit and sometimes great. But when they're great, you see, aren't you? So that's all that matters to me. They don't even have to be technically good. If they get me out of my seat, I'm voting for them. So I'm having Masaba.
Do you think you've got to give Masaba a little bit of leeway for his first season in English football as well? I know I'm not trying to get arguments or anything. Cadamartre has been brought on it. I know it's a different style of play with Danny Rule, but he has been part of the English system a few years. So Masaba coming to another country and playing football, I voted Masaba, but I mean, there's no right or wrong. Well, there is a right answer, but
all of these players will be different players in a few years' time. They'll be completely different beasts, won't they? I mean, Beadle won't be in his prime for another 10 years because he's still a teenager, which is insane to me. But Masaba and Gassama, like I just said, Gassama's already learned to pass the ball, which he wasn't doing before. Yeah. Masaba, they're getting better every time, and in 3 years' time, they'll be completely different. Cadamartre, in 5 years' time, will be an absolute beast, to be fair. So none of the young player of the seasons for any team will be the finished article. They'll all have bits that we like and bits that we can't stand about them, and you chip the bit you can't stand about them off, and you keep the good bits, and then they're signed for someone else.
So, Cy Hodgkinson is just put James Beadle for Young Player of the Year at 19 and helped us win points to stay up. Some older keepers would have flapped at the opportunity, and it seemed like Beadle was game for a laugh joining us.
Bear in mind as well, he's a teenager, and people were at him as well. When he made a mistake, they were really at him.
I think what showed as well, he'd been instructed to do play a certain way. But it was like when Hillsbury, when there was a lot of people, and in the South there was quite a lot like, get it booted up, get rid and all that. And there was two times. I'm not doing Dan Fudge with Dawson. I'm just thinking there's a couple of times when he tried to kick it out and he didn't, and it led to a goal or a chance or something like that. But then for him to take on 20,000 odd saying get rid and oof it, but not stick to what he was told to do from his boss, is pretty mature, I thought. And I thought he was getting better and better and better. He didn't get my vote, but like Stevie, you just think, don't you? So, should we see
sorry, mate. Just a quick one on Hollie's point. We're talking about these players not being the same players in 4 or 5 years' time or 10 years' time, whatever. These aren't going to be the same set of players next year. If everything comes down the way that we want it to, and we retain the manager, there will be an element of an overhaul of the squad. But we are going to retain Masaba. We are going to keep Gassama. We are going to play those players, and all being well, touch wood, there'll be some new deals for those more prominent players that have been in the press and in the news for not necessarily having signed the contracts yet. Because under Danny Rule, I can see that there will be some progression, and I hope that they stay. But he's going to have a full pre-season. He's going to have Germany under his belt. He's going to have he's going somewhere else in England, aren't they? They've got 2 camps that they're looking at doing. He's going to drill these players. He will blood some of the youth. So I'd expect to see Joey Pooty on a Quayle potentially being in and around the squad pre-season. I'm excited for having Danny Rule, a pre-season under Danny Rule, and I think we'll do some shrewd business in the summer, because if we're keeping him, we're going to keep him because we're going to keep him with a bit of a caveat of we're going to do some activity that's going to make it enticing enough for him to stay. So I think there will be some decent things happening over the summer.
But if we're going to bring young players into the squad, the fans have got to be patient, because like Ash was just saying, Beadle did a couple of wobblers. Not just Beadle, every player that's on this list has had a couple of moments, and the fans turn straight away. But if Danny's going to bring in a young squad, obviously under Darren Moore, it was more of an older squad, more experienced. A younger squad, if we've got half the squad are under 25 and the fans turn on them, they're not going to be as resilient against that as the older guys. They're not going to.
I totally.
But if it turns, it's bad.
I totally agree with you. The only thing that I would add to that is I'd like to think that with the manager and the management team that we've got, a lot more of the fan base now are starting to trust the process. And I think I certainly sit in an area of the ground where typically it's get it up pitch, get it out, just boot it. Which I don't understand when we're in 2024, and the reason that we do.
I'm not doing that, please. I'll not be there.
The reason that we do, the reason that we play the way that we play is to try and retain possession of the ball. And if we lump it, and there were times when we had Bailey Cadamartri up front, and we were lumping it up to him, and people were expecting him to win it and retain it. And the way that we play football isn't conducive to us lumping the ball. We can't do that because there's nobody to lump the ball up to and then flick it onto, and the players in and around. That's not how we play football. We play football by being dynamic and progressive and playing through the thirds. And people in our fan base need to understand that we're playing the best football that I've seen us play, dare I say it, since 1993. It's literally that good. But yeah,
unless we're 2-0 down at Norwich and then we bring Patterson and Smith on and lump it up and get to. But that's a plan B, isn't it? That's not nothing.
It is, mate. Joking aside, it is a plan B. So what? We've got a plan B. So we can mix it and we can do it both ways. This manager has proven that he can play any style of football with a squad of players that, you know, even as recently as Easter, even in our group chat, certain people have said Palmer goes, Bannon goes, Volks might stay, this player goes, that player goes. These are all players that have played very, very well this season. And I know I'm a bit of a Palmer stan, you know, but Bannon has played well, Volks has played well. You know, every single player that you look at, where we're talking about releasing, letting them go, we need better players in. I challenge anyone to tell me who we're going to get that's going to be better than Barry Bannon next year or Liam Palmer next year, based on the resources that we've got. And that might be half the people. Listen, he's not playing centre midfield and he's not playing at the back. All right, I'd take him.
You mean man for man?
Yeah,
he'd play number 10. He'd play in a number 10 role.
I'll take him. I'd absolutely have him. I'd have Ugbo back as well. And I agree with you. But what I'm saying is we've got players here that have done a job, and people are suddenly going, right, we need better. I'm not necessarily sure. What we need is an addition to the squad that we've got. And there are players that need to be moved on. We do respect to the players that I might mention. Hendrick ain't good enough, you know. Fletcher is not good enough. And all right, they're loan players. But if we can replace these loan players that haven't worked out with better standard of players, then I think we'll be in good shape under the management team that we've got.
Right. All right, then. Let's get on it. So, young player of the season, the TWW. Are you ready? Yes, Anthony, or Tony to his mates, Musaba. So he's the young TWW Young Player of the Season. Just before we go on to the next one, anyone on X on the poll, vote for yours. So the followers, Twitter, whatever, get your votes in for the TWW followers, subscribers, whatever. Player of the season, have your vote. Right, here we go. The big one. It's come down to this. The season 23-24 done. We've survived in the championship. We may have a manager next season. We may have more than 10 players. You know, it's going to be a great summer. So here we go. So the last one is, of course, the big one, the player of the season. Right. And let me get this ready.
And the nominees are...
The boss would never forgive me if we don't play his voice at least 49 times on this podcast, will he? So we've got Volks, Bernard, Johnson, and Bannon. They are the four nominations for our player of the season. Right, who shall I start with? Come on, Charlie. I'll let you go first. Who got your vote for player of the season? Or should I say player of the last half of season?
Yes. Yeah. I think, well, that's been the thing, hasn't it? Is like one of the things we've talked about in a lot of the other nominations is like consistency was always going to be a very difficult thing because of how crazy the first half of the season was under a different manager, yada, yada. So I think Volks has been fantastic. And I think he well deserved like getting the, you know, the fans vote like from the club and everything else. Like I think he's been great, and he is great as well. He's done amazing things like his charity work and stuff like that. He's just generally a good egg. I think for me, along a similar line, it's Johnson, and I think what he offers is fantastic. And I've like sung his praises at various different times, like over the last like the second half of the season. But a lot of it was like it was the story. It was him coming back. Like what had happened to him under Cisco was horrendous. Like it really was. And it's clearly something that had like a massive impact on him. And for him to not only come back from that, but be so like essential in so many key moments in the season for me, like I don't think we could do without him. And I'm not saying he's perfect. He's not a perfect player. I'm not saying he's our most skilled player, but I think what he offers is fantastic. He has some amazing partnerships with the likes of like Bannon and like some real like key reading of situations. And I think mostly it is that coming back from that adversity for me that he just tips it for me for that. And yeah.
I think also it was such an easy win for Danny Rule to come in and bring him back.
Yeah.
I'm all about vibes, and it just lifted everybody. I mean, the pressure on him to do well after everybody had started a free Johnson campaign, like the pressure on him to come back and be really good, was. But from Danny's point of view, I bet that were first on his to-do list. Just bring him back.
Oh, defo. So, like you say, such an easy win. It was like when Joss went and Bullen was like, the first thing he did was go and get like Westwood and Hutchinson back. Like it was like, people need this like immediately. So yeah, it had vibes of that kind of like, come on back in, don't be so silly. Like, of course we're going to play it. It's ridiculous. So yeah, it was a good news story all around. Yes.
And I think also just their family and stuff like have really embraced the club. It's another another story of like the fans and a family like becoming part of it, which is also like on the comments, Bannon being the leader in a season like this. I think Bannon is again. I think it would have been really bad for Bannon to end like if he obviously I don't know what he's going to do, but if he's not going to be an integral player in next season, I think it would have been really crap to get relegated on his last big hurrah. But I'm not a Bannon fan generally, but more times than he hasn't, he's made me eat my words really this season. So I think I would have to go Bannon. I think he has really like stepped it up. And when we were speaking to Stockdale recently, check that out if you haven't listened to it. He mentioned about when other people sort of like drop a bit, Bannon stays at like he still has that desire to like pull some out of nothing. And think in these last few games as well. Bear in mind, obviously, is over 30. He really has had quite a like the intensity that he's had in those last games has really dragged us over the line. So I think I would have to go for Bannon, although Johnson is my future husband, so I do love him.
We've got loads of comments on here. So we've got Volks has got a lot of love. Baz, we've got Palmer, Johnson, Volks, Joe Blacker. Stephen Fletcher don't play for us anymore, mate.
You know what? I think if things had continued as they were early this season, it would have been a really tough ask to even pick any of them. But as this last section of the season's gone, I could honestly, like we were saying earlier, I could argue for any of them. Volks is just, again, Volks in the last 5 games was just beyond last season. So last season, obviously, I think I actually voted for him last season as player of the year, but even beyond last season, these last 5-10 games, he's been like beyond that. So I could argue for any of them.
Cool. Stevie, quick one on yours.
I'm going for it. I'm going Palmer. I've decided to give everybody a big fuck you, and I'm going for the person that I think deserves it, and I'm going Palmer.
Right, we'll get on to the winner of the player of the season. Don't forget, this has been voted for by these 3 and the other members of the TWW cast. So whatever they've said now is obviously different to what they voted. So that's it. So
I did, full disclosure, I did change my mind, and for the benefit and for everybody pulling back the curtain, Ash absolutely hammers me every time I say something nice about Liam Palmer.
What have I hammered you about?
Stevie.
Amateur.
He does. He picks on me. You picks on me all the time. All season, you've been picking on me.
Oh, podcast HR will be having that, aren't they? Bloody hell.
Matt agrees with you anyway because he's from Worksop.
For the benefit of people that might not know, mine and Ash's favourite pastime for the first sort of 3 or 4 years was always falling out with each other.
I know. I think this season's changed a little bit, hasn't it?
I know. We've had a bit of a loving, haven't we? Yeah,
just a bit, you know.
Pissing off back to the cop, so normal service will be resumed next year.
Yeah, well, that's it. Well, it'll save me a price of a pint every week anyway, won't it?
I like you. Right.
I'll buy Holly a pint instead. So that's the TWW podcasters votes. Obviously, over on Twitter, you guys have been casting your vote of the player of the season. And I'm looking for it here. Dan said he's done it, but I can't see it. Dan?
Ooh.
The fans player of the season is Barry Bannon. So there we go. So you guys who voted with, I can't see that, 30-odd% of the vote is Barry Bannon. I'm sorry, Barry, you haven't got a posh little thing, which I thought Dan was going to do while he's been sat there doing nothing. But, you know, that's it.
I can see Dan looking stressed.
Yeah, he is. He's on. He's,
Look at him.
all you guys have voted.
Somewhere down there, he's doing this.
So just a couple of comments. We've got no award for the most improved chairman.
Who's manager of the year?
Well, someone put in the comments earlier. I'm sorry, I meant to star it earlier. That Sully Cisco for the signings.
Wow.
Yeah, I saw that. I saw that.
He got a point against Leeds.
Yeah. Neil Thompson got a point from one game, so that weren't too bad, was it? So he did
and a distinctly better result against them than we got later on in the season. But we won't talk about that.
Oh no, that has to go.
Wayne Rooney for helping send Birmingham down.
Yeah.
The two worst away games, Birmingham and Hull. Not Hull. Sorry, Hull was bad. Huddersfield, wasn't it?
Which is the worst managerial signing, us with Cisco or Birmingham with Rooney?
It's got to be Birmingham with Rooney because they went down in the end, didn't they? If you're a stats man, which I know Stevie is, he's shaking his head, but if you look at that, then yeah, it's got to be on it because they went down. If we'd have gone down, then 100%.
Thank God we had time to rectify it. Thank God.
Yeah. Well, everyone. That's our awards. They're all done. We have got a little bit of any other business. Thanks, Dan. Yeah, it's if you like my shirt, he says it's available on a bus seat near you. Thank you very much. Any other business? Anyone got anything? I have something. If no, so obviously summer's coming up. A bit of winter break for the players. We're still not having a break, though. We're going to crack on through the summer months, the off-season. So we've got Owls Alumni, where we chat with ex-Sheffield Wednesday players. That's been great in the last couple of weeks. We've got some cracking players coming up. We're going to have next week's show, we're going to do a bit of a review and a bit of I know we've done a little bit here with the awards, but we'll have a talk about that and preview. Hopefully, there may be a retained list come out this week. So there'll be something to no doubt chew over then. So, anybody want to say anything else? Well, before we leave,
I want to say. Oh, go on, Stevie.
Sorry, I was just going to double down on the Owls alumni stuff because they've been fantastic. During lockdown, we did a lot of those, and it was great to have them live and talk to some real people that goosebump sort of people, John Arks and what have you. Were phenomenal, and it's great content. If you want to go back, and I know we plugged it at the start of the pod, the subscribing on YouTube and everything else, they're all in the archives there. If you want to go back and have a look at all the stuff that we've done over the last few years, but just for me personally, really, really fortunate to have been involved with the Stockdale interview. That was absolutely priceless. The Prutton one, literally just sat and listened to the bloke just sort of talk about his passion for the club, and I mean a genuine passion for playing for Sheffield Wednesday that me as a fan didn't realise that he had. I took the little one to Wembley this weekend and listened to the Nicky Weaver one, which again was a great hour. And Dan managed to get some real good content out of him with the questions that we've got. Coming up, we've got Chris Turner. We've got a couple others that are lined up. We're doing, I don't know if I'm allowed to say these or not, but we've got Chris Kirkland in the wings. So there's going to be some good ones, and keep an eye out for them. And if and when we push them, we are asking for your questions. And, if you've got anything that you'd like us to pose to these people, it'd be great to have, more of a fan base sort of interaction with it as well. And we're more than happy to put anything sensible to them. And it just makes for all real good content. So please get involved when you see it.
And any suggestions of future guests? Always up for suggestions. Who you want to hear? Holly, what was you going to say?
I was just going to say, today's the start of Mental Health Awareness Week. Chris Kirkland's coming up. He's got some resources about that. He's quite a good advocate for men's mental health. The Women's Supporters Group are putting together some local mental health stuff that's based more Sheffield. Football's a really good way to get out of your own head. So it's going to be a bit harder now that we haven't got it every week. But obviously, please look out for all your friends, ask them if they're okay. And look out for all the resources that come out. That's all. Look after yourselves, everybody. Yeah,
we've tweeted out today all numbers to ring of all the charities and any numbers. So, yeah, you're not alone if you feel like you've got to talk to someone. Even drop us a DM. Come on. You can see how much shit we talk. We'd love to talk shit with anyone. So drop us a DM or email or on any of the socials. Please do, because we are all Wednesday, and that not just Wednesday fans, anyone who's listening as well. So that's great. So I've had a great hour and 10 minutes. Thank you all for joining us. That's the 23-24 awards. We'll see you next season, and it's going to be a great one, isn't it? And thank you, everyone. Right, see you all. We're going to sign off. Thank you very much.
Actually has a shot, but it goes the other way.
Lebos. Hello, good evening, and welcome to another episode of the Wednesday Week.
A little bit older than you.
I'm not touching this topic. I'm not touching it.
Yeah.
Mediocre, mid-table, rabble on.
So I just want to be able to talk as much
If
crap.
we play a night game, he has to turn the bloodlines on.
No one would have believed that he would keep his job for as long as he had. But